Okay, so I hesitate to call these things algorithms because he has so many of them, right? So each one of these is really an algorithm. So I just want to characterize, like, what are the algorithms that went into building the vacuum, right? Like, it's got one kind of broad algorithm that's like, clean the house, right? But as a part of that algorithm, there's like several sub-modes, right? And each of those have their own little algorithm to execute them, right? So one of the modes that we saw was this like open space zigzag, right? And then we actually saw this one too. Right, that thing he was doing up against the edge there, where he's like, okay, I'm gonna go forward, turn, hit the edge, back up, go forward, turn, hit the edge, go forward, back up, turn, hit the edge. Right, so that's his like kind of one of his two edge modes. He's got that one, and then he's also got a follow edge mode that I was kind of telling you about. Okay, let's see. What are the... Oh, there's one more that's not obvious that he has that he did for just a second. And I wasn't sure whether anybody saw it. What would be another good mode for him to have? Like, if you were designing a good vacuum, what's another thing it would do? You had a good idea, but Spike isn't that smart. So, another good idea that Spike is not smart enough to do is some kind of an overall map. And the reason I very specifically bought the cheap vacuum that doesn't include this overall map thing is that Indy is dumb, and he executes the ball algorithm. And if it mapped every spot that it ran into a ball in the house and then avoided them forever, I would not have any luck getting my floor cleaned, because it would just stay next to its charger, and maybe not even that. So there's one more cleaning algorithm that this vacuum has, which none of you guys are on board. What if it ran across a really dirty spot?
Go back over and forth a couple times.
Close. So remember, it's blind, right? It's not very smart. So it's not seeing anything on the floor. But it does know if it hits a big pile of dirt. Like, it's got a little flow rate sensor, and so it figures out, like, oh, wow, that was dirty. But keep in mind, it's just kind of wandering around the room at random, right? Like, this thing works really well in a, like, nice, open, square space. Whose house is a nice, open, square space?
4 people.
People who haven't moved in yet, right? Because there's like furniture, like table legs, and chair legs, and little carpets, and thresholds, and like freaking couches, some of which have legs and some of which don't, right? Like lamps that sit on the floor, and like potted plants, and like all sorts of garbage, right? So what does it do? Well, it doesn't get a nice clean like go bounce, go bounce, go bounce, right? It gets a like random like wander, bounce off the edges kind of thing, right? So if it runs across a dirty spot, you don't really want to hope that it's going to run across that dirty spot again later. Right? So what do you have it do? Like, if it goes, whoa, that's dirty.
Mark area.
Like this, right? Like go around in the spiral and try to get that area pretty good. And so that's actually one of his modes. He has this, like, if you find a dirty spot, you do this thing to try to get as much of it as you can. You guys cool with that? Okay, then he has a bunch of safety modes, like, so there's some moving stuff and some safety stuff. Oh, and one more. What was the other thing we just saw him do? Yeah. There's a find a charger. And that mode actually has some stuff that goes with it, right? Like, he should oh, what the heck? Let's put him in find a charger mode. Oh, no. I'll just tell you what he does. So, he goes into find a charger mode, and then he does a slow circle, looking for the highest signal strength from the charger. Picks a direction that had the highest signal strength, and what?
Goes that way.
Goes that way for a little bit. Then he stops and goes around in a circle looking for the highest signal strength. Then he goes that way for a little bit. Unless, right? Unless he hits something, in which case he bounces off of it in a random direction, goes that way for a little bit, and then does the circle. You guys see that? It is amazingly effective. Like, it's actually astonishingly effective. So this thing has a couple steps. Like, there's a detect signal step, and then a, like, proceed step. Right? And each of those has a little algorithm that has to go with it. Right? You guys see what? Like, what's the detect signal algorithm going to happen?
The spiral.
Move in a circle.
Yeah, it's going to have some kind of a, like, rotate, right? And while rotating, check signal strength, right? Record signal strength somewhere, then go back, find the maximum, return to that direction, right? And that's probably what his detect signal algorithm consists of. His proceed algorithm probably consists of something like drive that way for a while. I don't know how far. It probably depends on the signal strength, although I don't know that. I really haven't taken him apart to know what his guts are. You guys see that? Okay. Let's see. What are the probably safety algorithms? We saw one of them.
If lifted.
Yeah, there's a lifted.
Stuck.
Yeah, I told you guys there was some kind of a. Actually, I'm gonna put that on for moving. There's a like stuck / distress. One day I found out that he has a distress mode for if the brushes aren't turning, because I accidentally closed one of his brushes into the. He's got these little brushes, right? These are kind of what let him get into corners. But he's also got this big brush. And to clean that, you open this little door. The first time I did that, I didn't think about it very hard, and I did something like this, where I closed his brush in the door, right? And so to keep from burning out the motor, right, one of his safety things is like, if brush not turning, go to distress mode. Cool with us? Okay, so he's got stuck / distress, lifted. What else? You guys think of any others?
Pause for a long duration.
Yeah, there's some kind of a like, if paused, then return to charger. That kind of makes sense. He's also got a few other little subroutines about like, if battery, or if you've been sitting on the charger and your battery reaches full, you should
Go clean.
yeah, either go clean or back off the charger, right? And then there's if you've been sitting for a while and not cleaning and not charging and your battery gets to a certain amount, you should drive onto the charger, right? Which is what he was trying to do here. So he seems to do that at about 4 in the morning. Really conveniently. And of course, the find charger command works pretty well, but it takes a minute. So he does like 2 full circles and drives into the wall at least once in the middle of the night with his little brushes going so they hit the charger and make a bunch of racket. Right? Let's see. So there's another moving thing that I wanted to highlight, which is an edge detector. And there's another safety thing, which is, what would be bad? What if he fell off the edge here? What should he do? Yeah, shut off and cry, right? So there's a like if falling mode.
Panic attack.
Yeah, exactly. Which triggers exactly a panic attack. Like all his lights light up and he beeps at you a bunch of times.
Have you tried it by tossing it up and seeing what
Yeah.
happens? Oh, nice.
Duh.
Of course.
You guys don't play enough with your toys. I got this thing and the very first thing I did when I got this stupid thing was turn it on and watch it and try to sort out all these algorithms so I knew which modes he was going to be in. And then I went through and tested a bunch of, I didn't test the driving off a tabletop thing, I probably should have. But I did test the if falling one just because I didn't have any stairs and I wanted to know what would happen.
Can you like put some flowers on top of it and it still moves, or put anything on it does it stop?
Yeah, we put Indy's ball on it.
Okay.
All the time. It doesn't have sensors in the back. It's actually got a relatively limited set of sensors. So it seems to have, it has little infrared edge sensors here, here, and here. So it can drive backwards off of an edge. It doesn't back up that much though, which I think is probably by design, right? Like if you knew that you were designing an object with edge sensors in the front, right? You would have very few times to put backup in the code. Otherwise, you would have lots of complaints from your customers about, well, it was working fine and then it backed up down the stairs. Now it's in a million pieces. I would like a new one, thank you. Or I would like a refund, thank you, which is worse, right? So he's got those edge sensors. He's got this little thing that I believe is low frequency radio to find his charger, but don't quote me on that. I don't actually know exactly what that is. It might be an infrared sensor, I'm not sure. He's got the little bump sensor, right? And if you fiddle with it a little bit, you'll figure out that there's like 4 or 5 sensors in there telling it which side and where and how hard bumped, right? And then he's obviously got some sensors on the wheels themselves, so he knows whether the wheels are grabbing or not by the load on the motor. But that's really all he is. Like, it's a fairly clever thing. Why didn't these exist like 15 years ago? Why are these new?
Batteries.
That's the primary reason, yeah. It's basically batteries. Computer power has gotten super cheap too. So if you had written all of this junk 15 years ago, it would have had to house on a computer that was like bigger than a ping pong ball, which would make him necessarily bigger and necessarily less useful around the house, right? Now that you can run all of this junk, you guys know what the size of a computer that runs all of this junk is? Yeah. This would run on an Arduino Nano, which with a board so that you can hold on to it is the size of the end of your pinky. The actual chips are like sub-fingernail size. They end up mounting it to much bigger stuff just so you can play with it. Cool? Questions on any of this?